Shabbat Shalom. This weekend we study the portion of Lech Lecha and we get acquainted with Avraham. Avraham is maybe the symbol of faith. In our Torah portion appears the very famous verse from chapter 15 verse 6. V'yamen b'Adonai v'chashva lo tzedakah. Abraham believed the Lord and he credited it to him as righteousness. Abraham is mentioned several times in the New Testament as the ultimate believer, as a symbol, as a manifestation of faith. Abraham is mentioned in James, in Romans, in Hebrews as a symbol of faith, and many other places as well. But in our Torah portion, one verse after this, or actually two verses afterwards, God promises this land to Abraham, the land of Israel. And Abraham asks the Lord, how will I know that I will inherit it? Give me a sign. It says, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? That's verse 8. And this question astonishes the rabbis and the commentators of the scriptures. How can Abraham not believe God? How can Abraham ask God, give me a sign? How will I know I will possess it? And they explain that because of that, because of his disbelief, he got punished. And two verses after that, we read that the Lord tells Abraham, know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. That's the punishment. That's how they see it. Abraham fell into misbelief, and God punished him so that his children will go 400 years to be slaves in Egypt. Now, before we discard it as untrue, because we know Abraham is a man of faith, a symbol of faith, and it could not be that Abraham did not believe, I want to remind you that Abraham was a real person. Sometimes we read the scriptures and we see our forefathers as superheroes, not as real people. But we have to remember that they were real people with real questions, real doubts, real problems. They were made from the same material that I was made and that you were made. That being said, I still see Abraham as a symbol of faith. And that brings me to look for more explanations. What else could this verse mean? Why were the descendants of Abraham went down to Egypt for 400 years to be mistreated there? And that brings us to the second explanation. The rabbis see, some of the rabbis see the question of Abraham not for himself, not how will I know I will inherit the land, but for my children. How will I know that they will keep their identity? How will I know that they will keep the faith? And I think that's a question for every parent. For every father, he asks that question. How will I know that my kids will remain in faith, will keep their identity? Because it's hard. It's hard growing here in Israel as believers. And I'm sure it's hard everywhere in the world to grow as believers. To teach your children, you're different. You're special. We have a different set of rules, of morals, high standards that we have to keep up to. That we believe in Yeshua HaMashiach. We believe in the Scriptures. We believe, no matter what the world tells you, we believe that the Scriptures are real, that the Torah is real, that God is the creator of this world. We believe that. You're different. You're different from the world. The world teaches something else. We're different. It's hard to teach the children that. And how would God keep the identity of the next generation of Abraham, of his descendants? How? So the rabbis answer like this: He will take them down to Egypt for 400 years. Well, they will be mistreated. They will be slaves. Even if they wanted to assimilate, they couldn't. They're slaves. They're separated. They're different. And God promises Abraham they'll go down 400 years. They'll be mistreated. They will be separated. They cannot be assimilated, even if they wanted. And after 400 years, when they're ready, when they're a nation, when they're a people, I will bring them to the land. I will bring them back home. And they will be my people, and I will be their God. That's the promise of God to Abraham. That's another explanation. But yet, there's another question in the portion. It says, for the fourth generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. What does that mean? I think there is another explanation here. I think God is warning Abraham, more like also warning us, warning all the readers and the people that study the Torah. You have been warned. There is a measure. There is a certain quota of sin that I can take, God says. Once you reach that, judgment comes down, and you're expelled from the land. In Deuteronomy chapter 2, there's a whole list of nations that were here, that possessed the land. And Moses and God tells us, you have been warned. They were all here, and they were all taken out, driven out. When a sin reaches a certain quota, that's when the punishment comes. And we have to be careful, because for 400 years we weren't here. Then for 70 years during the Galut Bavel we weren't here. And then for 2,000 years we weren't here because of our sins, because of our bad morals, because of our bad life. And God brought us back. How did God keep us? How did God keep our identity? I believe it's through the customs and the regulations and the mitzvot, the commandments of the Torah, the different dietary laws, the different holidays, the different day, for example, Shabbat, kept us separated. And we read and we learn that, for example, during the time of the Inquisition in Spain, the women, the mothers of the house, are the ones that kept their identity. They were the stronghold of the house. They kept the regulations. They kept their identity. They kept and lit the Shabbat candles. Even if they did it hidden in a cabinet, they still did it. They are the ones that kept their identity. The New Testament teaches us that one of the roles of the women is to keep and maintain the household. It's an important job. It's basically up to the women to take care of the house. And the way the family looks like, and the way the family acts, and the children grow up is a direct contact to the woman, to the mother, how she raised the household. It's a very important job, and it's up to you to raise your family according to the Torah, according to the scriptures, and teach them the right way. Shabbat Shalom.